Hi guys, I'm Alan with SWI. We're down here in Cheyenne today. We're going to be building a Kentucky 4-board fence using 5/4 by 6 by 16 foot treated poplar rough cut lumber. So we've got all our posts driven into the ground. Some spots were a little easier than others. Then yesterday afternoon we started getting 1.5 inches of rain, so made things a little easier to finish driving today. So we drive our post close to where we think our finish grade is, and then we'll come back and we'll trim the top off the last couple inches. That way if there's any blemishes on the top of the post, we can cut out that blemish then, and we can get a nice even flow with the top of our posts down the entire fence line. Now with a 4-board fence, that's pretty important because any little up and down you're going to see. Next we're going to start laying out all our boards. We're going to lay out our boards so that our ends staggered. They're a 16-foot rail, so we'll lay them out to where one board starts here. The next board down on the fence is actually going to start here. The next one's going to start here. The next one's going to start here. We're staggering all those laps just for a little better rigidity. So when this is all done, we'll actually be coming back through and we'll be putting a face board over the rails, over the face of the post at each post. So rough cut lumber, if you're not familiar with it, you're going to have some plus and minus on your widths and your thicknesses. So the face board helps cover that. Also the face board helps cover your saw cuts. And if you're rolling your 4-board fence over some terrain, you'll end up having to put relief cuts in at the post to get the rail to bend up and down. So that face board hides all that. And that's freaking awesome, dude. So on this fence, we had a discussion with the homeowner of what kind of spacing we want between the boards and the finish height of the fence. We're going to keep the finish height of this fence pretty close to 4 foot, a little bit over. We're going to do a 1 inch between the top of the rail to the top of the post. This helps us with our nails getting into a little more meat of the post. So we'll have a 6-inch rail and then a 7-inch gap and then another 6-inch rail. So we've marked the tops of our rails here all the way down. And then down here at the bottom, we're going to keep this fence pretty flat. So at the bottom, our gap's going to be plus and minus. At some spots, it looks like we're going to be getting a little close to the ground. So we'll be coming back in the future and digging out some of that ground so that we can keep that gap a little more consistent. The 2 spots we have are very small, so we figured it was better to just go ahead and dig that down just a little bit in those 2 little spots versus having a big hump in our fence. So we've started putting our boards up. It's a pretty simple process. We went through and we marked the top of our rails for all 4 rails. We put a Sharpie mark an inch down from the top. Then we left a 7-inch space. We've got a mark for our next rail, top of the rail, top of that rail, and then top of our bottom rail down here. So we're staggering our rails. So just like what you're seeing right here, this top board runs to this post. The next board's going to run through this post and to the next post, and then this the second board up stops at this post again. The bottom board is going to run through this post and into the next post, because that's why I want to do it, my way or the highway. We're doing that so we're not putting the seams all on one post. By carrying half the boards through the post, we're making it stronger. So we're using 4.5-inch galvanized ring shank nails. We're using this jumbo air nailer to put these in. Takes pretty big air compressor, and 100 psi works pretty good to shoot these nails in. You can also use CTX construction screws to avoid having to get out an air compressor, and also this jumbo air nailer. Both those things aren't the cheapest to have, but if you're doing it every day like we are, we're going to use the nail gun and the air compressor. So the other thing we're doing when we're running these boards, we're nailing our one end and our middle, and we're leaving this one run long. We're getting nails on the end, nails in the middle, and we're just leaving this one floating out. We'll do that on both rails, and then once we get this way, we'll trim the board to length and then nail it. And then rinse, lather, repeat about 100 times, and then you'll get to the end finally. So one guy's holding the boards while the other one runs the nail gun. If they get an end of the board that's not nice and square cut, they're not going to worry about it, because we are going to put a face board on it, so it's going to cover up any gaps. If they get an end of a board that's all split out or doesn't look good, they'll try to put that on their cut in so they can cut that out. If they can't, they'll just set the board aside, and we'll end up using that board to cut our face boards out of. And there she goes. Takes a lot of air. So we're putting on the face boards. The face boards cover up the butts of the boards, 2 boards coming together. Also, if the fence had some rolling to it and we needed to put kerf cuts in the continuous rail to help us raise and lower for the grade changes, it would also cover up those kerf cuts. We're using 2 nails in each rail. The reason why we want to use 2 nails instead of just one is if we just used one, potentially this board could warp and cup. We don't really want that, so we've got 2 nails, 1 on each side. And then this rail now has quite a few nails going into this post. Depending on if it was running straight through or if it was a butt, it would be 4 to 6 nails. The 4-board fence has quite a few uses. This use on this particular place is just pretty much for decoration along the property line on the county road. So you'll see this type of fence a lot for curb appeal as a property boundary to dress up the property. You'll also see it a lot with animals, agricultural, horses, cows. This is a 5/4 inch thick board, and it's a hardwood too, so it's going to take quite a bit of abuse. Quite comparable to a round rail fence that we're more used to seeing here in Wyoming. We usually do not see this type of fence in our area. However, we want to give it a try. We think it's a very beautiful fence and has a lot of potential in our area. If you were to use this as a pasture fence, this would be a cheaper alternative to continuous fence panels. With the current steel market, steel's gone up quite a bit, and luckily the increases have not had quite the same effect on this lumber. The 4-board fence is an easy fence to install. Most do-it-yourselfers can tackle this no problems. Doesn't really take too much depending on how many footage you have. I think we've got 500 or 600 feet. This has taken on average 2.5 guys 2 days to complete. Obviously, some do-it-yourselfers would not have a post driver like we have, and instead of driving the post would use some sort of dirt auger to auger and tamp the posts in. We would prefer to drive the post because it does get the post in tighter, a little more solid, and it's a lot easier on our bodies. So that wraps up this fence here in beautiful Cheyenne. Very grateful that the rain decided to stop so we could finish this up today and show you how we do this 4-board fence. Thanks for watching. We cannot, I'm dragging on into nothing now. You'll probably find a good spot to cut back there. Okay. Thank you for watching my idiotness. It's super duper awesome.